So, by the way, mine is a non-technical talk, so everybody can kind of engage with this. And I primarily just want to present a few stories to help us understand what privacy is from a few different perspectives and what might be important. So, firstly, I have a question. Does anybody recognize any of these three people? Your best bet is the top left person. No, okay, so that's... top left is Gerald Ford, US president in the 1970s, Sarah Jane Moore, Oliver Billy Sipple. And the thing that links these three people is there was an assassination attempt on Gerald Ford in 1975 by this lady here. And they were at a rally, and she kind of like last minute, for left-wing radicalization reasons, decided to try and assassinate the president. She pulled out a gun, tried to shoot him, and missed, but she got very close. And just before she got off the second shot, this guy, Oliver Billy Sipple, kind of grabbed her and knocked her arm, so she missed the second shot. The bullet went just above his head. So this man instantly became like an overnight hero to the American people. But then, the newspapers outed him as being gay, and this had like massive, severe negative consequences on his life. His mum never spoke to him again. He just got disowned by his family. He suffered a lot of humiliation and stigma. And remember, this is mid-70s America. Like, being gay at those times in America was very much a problematic thing. So he decided to try and sue the newspapers for privacy violations. And his arguments were that, I mean, he was openly gay, but only within the gay community. He never told anybody outside. He didn't tell his family. He didn't tell like work friends or anything like that. And also, being gay wasn't relevant to what he'd done. Like, he had saved the US president. Why does that have? Why does his sexual orientation have any bearing on the public debate and about who he is? The newspapers defended by saying that he'd become a public figure, and so anything about his life was relevant to the public. But also that because there was this public debate about homosexuals, it challenged the stereotypes that they weren't just all weak and meek people and that they could do acts of heroism as well. Also, it explained the White House behavior, because, I mean, this guy saved the US president's life, and he didn't even get like a dinner. He didn't get invited to the White House. He just got a very generic thank you letter. And this is the reason why, is because the president didn't want to be seen with a gay person, really. In the end, the court ruled that he was openly gay. I mean, he wasn't like publicly telling everybody, but it still had become kind of public, and he'd lost a bit of his right to the information. But also that it was newsworthy because it related to the White House behavior and because it related to a public discussion on homosexuals. So, yeah, in the end, I mean, there was a big contributor, but he died relatively young at 47. They didn't even find his body for a few days because he had no friends left. He just kind of died by himself, drinking alone. So it really negatively impacted his life. We'll quickly just look at a few philosophical perspectives. Many legal systems are kind of Lockean, based on the British philosopher John Locke. And it's kind of that personal information is a private property, that you're the one who gets to decide. Because it's your property, it's your information, you should have a say in whether your information is shared or not. So it's kind of the basis for a lot of like legal systems, but not alone. There's many ideas interweaved with it. So for example, in like the US legal system, once you publicly share information, you lose your public right, your private right to it, because you've publicly shared it. It's not just your information anymore. And also, like, if you are a public figure, if it's relevant to public debate, you lose your right to privacy. We also have like a Kantian perspective where people should be treated as ends and not means, which means don't use people as tools for something. So revealing stuff about Sipple, about him being gay, is not about him. It doesn't help his life. I mean, you can make an argument that it kind of does a little bit, but primarily he was being used as a tool to help win the public discussion. And the third one is kind of the one that I'm going to give more emphasis to. It's a relatively modern one, and it fits the modern world much better, and the digital world, from Ari Ezra Waldman, and it's called Privacy as Trust. And it defines privacy as a relational concept between social structures, that when information is shared with a particular group, you're expecting the information to stay within that group and be used as you expect it to be used. So when Sipple shared with the gay community that he was gay, he was never expecting it to leave there. And this kind of perspective helps add a lot of clarity in law and legal judgments about when a privacy violation has happened, because it fits the modern social structures much better. But these ideas still miss something. I mean, if you're at Cryptist, you've probably seen this example a lot. We hear it at most zero-knowledge conferences, but maybe not so much anymore. But you go to the shop, you want to buy some alcohol, so you show them your ID card, and they only need to know that you're over 18, that you can buy alcohol. But they see your age, your date of birth, which is more than your age being over 18. It might show them your address, several other personal things about your life. So this isn't captured by the previous ideas, and we can refer to this and try and define it as something called privacy minimalism. And this is something that we should kind of try and build into our own products, discuss with regulators, and try and force it as an expectation on our behalf from our governments, but also the businesses we interact with. And this is that the kind of legal maximum amount of information a business should require from you to provide the service should be the minimum information they need to provide the service. They can ask for more, but they shouldn't be legally allowed to require more. I'm going to move to a second story. Does anybody know what Cambridge Analytica is? Any hands? I see a few nods. Yeah, so many of you will know this story. It's so evil, but so here are just a few newspaper clippings. Data firms executives caught boasting of dirty tricks to swing elections, admitting to influencing polls in Malaysia, 50 million profiles. What they did this all around the world. They just tried to influence elections, but in very intelligent ways, and the massive privacy violation. So what they did, number one, they asked people on Facebook, primarily in America, to fill out questionnaire forms using something called the Ocean methodology. And it would ask questions kind of like, how do you feel about this? And based on those questions, it would try and understand a person's personality type. But then it took those Facebook users, their data from the Facebook API. And this is one of the really messed up parts, it didn't just take their data. If I filled in this form, it would have taken my data about how I behaved on Facebook, my likes, my posts, and all stuff like that. But if we were all friends on Facebook as well, it would have taken all of your data as well. So even though I filled out the form, this company would have accessed all of your data as well. Very clearly, a huge privacy violation. Then they enriched the questionnaire and the Facebook data with additional data from other data sets, like the census and stuff like that. And they used this to train a model that could help understand the relationship between a person's personality type and their behavior on Facebook. And then they applied this model to the millions. They had millions and millions of people's Facebook data, and they used this to figure out, educated guess, personality types of all these people. And then they selected for personality types that they thought would be more amenable to being convinced by political messaging. And then they designed targeted political advertisements and sent it to those people to try and swing elections. So what they did is really, it's smart, but it's insidious. It's really an evil thing they were trying to do. And Facebook eventually took away the right to access data from users as friends, because that was so clearly a privacy violation. But they only did that in response to the public backlash and everybody complaining about what happened, because it really should have been illegal beforehand. We're moving into a world with AI where we can do amazing things, help automate and improve research in healthcare, even maths, cryptography, and a variety of other places as well. It's used a lot in daily life, customer service support, even coding. Coding is probably the biggest place where AI is being used to help. So you can do a lot of good, but obviously AI doesn't decide if what it does is good or bad. That's how we use it. So just as we can do amazing good with it, a lot of bad can happen with it as well. And this is something we should be careful of. The point I want to make here is that whenever possible, we should separate separable information. And what I mean by this, it has a more specific use case. when we interact with AI, we give it information. The point of interacting with it is so that it can process our information, and we can't get around that. We can try to encourage these companies to delete the data afterwards, but there's AI agents being developed, and these are going to kind of book your train tickets, your plane tickets, your hotels. They're going to automate more parts of your life. And if they're going to make purchases, for example, whether it's on Amazon or Booking.com, they need your address, they need your full name, they need your bank card details and things like that. But that information isn't actually needed by the AI agent creator. That can be separated and put in a kind of separate data vault. And that's what we want to argue for. And if you do this, number one, you reduce the power that these AI companies hold because they just won't have as much data. But number two, they also minimize the possibility of a privacy breach. I mean, the key idea really is an AI company is an AI company. It's not a security company. They're going to have maybe security people, but unless they outsource and try and separate information and put it in a secure box, it's not if they're hacked, it's when they're hacked, because there will be many, many hacks with lots of information being shared. We're never going to live in a world where there are like no privacy violations, but we can build mechanisms and systems to minimize those issues. Because for a good actor, if they have to go through an authentication system to access your data, it might be a nuisance, but it's a relatively small thing to do. But then if you have a bad actor that doesn't have to go through an authentication system, they can wreak a lot of havoc very, very quickly. I mean, I was reading even, I think yesterday, like M&S, a company in the UK, they spent around £300 million on a recent hack that accessed a lot of their data because they had to shut down the systems, lots of food went to waste. And many of the people say this afterwards, like they get hacked and afterwards they're like, it would have been a fraction of the price if they just implemented better security stuff along the way. I'm going to finish with a third story. It's a bit more extreme, but it just kind of demonstrates what can happen with data. I don't expect anybody to recognize them. I wouldn't have recognized them. But this first person on the left is Jacob Lenstra. Jacob Lens. And this is a story of during World War II. So Jacob Lens was a Dutch statistician. He kind of worked for the civil service in the Netherlands. And in 1940, he went to the government and he said, wouldn't it be great if we had a nice integrated system containing lots of information about all our people and where they're from and who they are and stuff like that. And the Dutch government responded and said, that sounds like a terrible idea. It assumes all our people are criminals that need documents that they have to show. So they said no to him. But then within a year, they were invaded by the Nazis, and then he took the same idea to the Nazis, and they said, that's a great idea, let's do that. They wanted as much information as possible because they knew what they could do with it. And he designed and built the identity card system, and it was like the best in Europe at the time. It was very hard to make fakes. This is an example of one of them here. But it also obviously has this little J in the top right corner, and obviously this person was Jewish. So after this, people all had to carry this identity card, the government had the data, and the Nazis on the streets could very easily figure out who was Jewish and who was not. Also, I mean, this person wasn't doing this for ideological reasons. I think he's just a mathematician or a statistician, and he liked the idea of like an effective mathematical tool to understand where their people were from. But he didn't really give thought about how this could be used. So after they did this, they knew exactly that they had 140,552 fully Jewish people, 14,549 half, and 5,719 quarter Jewish people. Similar thing in France, this is René Carmel, this other person. The Nazis invaded France, and when they were there, they said, where are your Jewish people and where do they live? How many do you have? And the French government said, well, we don't know. So they kind of instructed this guy to do a census, to send out questionnaires all around the country, to figure out how many people live where, but they wanted to figure out who was Jewish as well. So they snuck in a question about who people's grandparents were, and they were going to use that. What they didn't know is that René Carmel was actually in the French resistance, and he used his power to make tons of fake identity documents for Jewish people, help save thousands of lives. And this census that they did, he sent them out, but he never even collected the data. They didn't even send it to people to be read, because he was just trying to sabotage it all. Unfortunately, he died before the end of the war. But the key point is that they never knew how many Jewish people were there or where they lived. And if they were on the streets, they couldn't immediately tell if somebody was Jewish or not to try and send them to a concentration camp. They could ask, but obviously the person wouldn't say. So what percentage of people, Jewish people, died in these two countries? In the Netherlands, it was 75% of the Jewish population. In France, it was 25%. Now, this isn't only due to the differing amount of information in these two places, but that's like a huge contributing factor. So data is very powerful, and we can do a lot of good things with it, but it can also be like severely misused. And as we go into a future where there's more and more incredibly powerful AIs, and we're seeing the amazing things, we should make sure we include these things when we build our systems. So to reiterate, the kind of three main things to take away is this idea of privacy of trust, that privacy is a relational concept between social groups, and a privacy violation happens when a trust violation happens. If I tell a group and it will be assumed in confidence, and that information is shared outside that group or outside that purpose, a privacy violation has occurred. Secondly is this privacy minimalism, that businesses shouldn't be legally allowed to require more information than the minimum they need. And lastly is this separable information. And this is what I kind of work on at Terminal 3. We're building a kind of privacy layer between AI agents and user data, where we have a secure vault, and the AI agents have to request access to the vault in a very ergonomic and efficient way. But it means that user data, if you're ever going to share your bank card or things like that with an AI agent, you don't share it with them, you share it with us in this very secure vault. It's inside a TE. It's only ever decrypted inside, and it's re-encrypted before it leaves. So we can never access your data. Hope you learned something. Okay, I don't know if there'll be any questions, but okay. Oh, sorry, we have a, Jonas. Turn it on.
Great initiative to educate us on privacy, but I'm going to point out a big fallacy in your presentation. You're assuming that AI could be a bad actor if it gathers a lot of data. But what about the owners of AI being bad to start with? I'm talking about surveillance and privacy breaching from day zero.
Yeah.
And I'm talking as someone who has experienced this. And I've also come across other people who have experienced this and who are publicly calling out the AI owners. They're engaging in surveillance from day one to monitor what kind of a person you are and whether you have some valuable something to extract, which I call cognitive sovereignty, and
Sure.
and so on.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't saying that with more information AI will become bad. I'm just saying if there are bad actors, and you're talking about AI companies that themselves are bad, the main way we deal with that is kind of with our wallets. Number one, not purchasing their services. Number two, having like public complaints. But number three is making sure that we make our expectations in our what behavior we expect from these AI companies to be enforced from a legal perspective. Because if it's just money, one of the difficult things is AI companies, they can be better by having more data. Like the models get trained, and they have to have high quality data to train them. So if they collect more data from us and try and pass it and do kind of bad things, they have an unfair advantage compared to the ones that don't collect the information. So unless we put some other rule set that's enforced by the government, there's not too much we can do to combat them, except just personally not using their service. But most people use the same thing. Like Chrome is used by 80% of people or something, and it's not that much work to use on the browser, but people don't really care that much, generally speaking. Yeah? Do you want to pass the...
First of all, thanks for this nice talk, and I have another point of view for this kind of philosophy of privacy. So I'm always interested in starting point of privacy of an identity. Where does it start? So we should also talk about when it starts, or what is the starting point. It's again, in terms of my point of view, I have some philosophical point of this phenomena. But what do you think about it? When does it start, and how do we should take care of it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting philosophical question. I would focus just on the kind of privacy as trust idea that we have our own personal identity, and bit by bit we can share parts of that with different social groups. I'm primarily interested in making sure that we can protect our identity when we want to protect it. When we interact with a service, whether it's online or government, they should only require, for example, if we're going to vote, they should only require the knowledge that we are a citizen who can vote, that we're over 18 and currently live in the country or something. They shouldn't have to know who we are or where we're voting and things like that. But yeah, maybe I haven't answered your question very well, but
For instance, in hospitals, it starts with the report of a doctor. So doctor reports that you are poor, and then you are given the identity card, and it becomes starting point of some case of your identity.
okay.
And then, but this is a kind of way of having some kind of starting point of your identity. But of course, this doesn't can count. Maybe if I am knowing maybe 10 people here, maybe this can be proof of my identity.
Okay.
I mean, this kind of maybe philosophical things.
Yeah.
Triggering some ideas, maybe how to kind of make a proof of identity.
Yeah, I mean, proof of identity is a very difficult thing. I mean, you're saying that when you're born, you'll get given this ID card, but this is the kind of start of your digital identity as well, and being part of a regulated system. For example, in the UK, where I'm from, we don't have identity cards. It's not a thing, and part of it is because of this discussion in World War II about how that data can be misused. Like in the UK, we only have our driving license. Many people don't even have those. So I know in many countries they have this identity document, but proving yourself to be a unique individual is a difficult problem that many actually crypto projects are trying to work on by doing it with the kind of friendships, as you say. There's some of them where you have to meet other people at a party, and if they approve of you, they'll add you to their identity system, and you can slowly grow it that way, and it will protect your anonymity. But yeah, it's an interesting, large project, but I think if we have specific questions that we want to try and answer, it's a bit of an easier way to make progress with it.